Welcome everybody to the first episode of Breaking the Cork. I'm Arthur, your host for tonight, and Quentin.
My name is Quentin Wind, and first episode, and we have a wonderful guest that has somehow accepted our invitation.
He's now heading up the good front room inside the Langham Hotel, one of the most luxurious hotels in London. He's offering a menu of Caribbean flavors from chicken to jackfruit patties. Chef Dom Taylor. How are you doing, Dom?
I'm really well. Yes. I'm really excited to be here.
So, how was the beginning of starting the good front room?
I mean, it's been really amazing because it's a concept really close to my heart for many reasons. Caribbean food and culture, I absolutely love. The Good Front Room was named after a sacred room in my great aunt's house.
Okay.
One that we was forbidden to go in. And
Seriously?
Yes, it was like decorated and adorned with all of these ornaments and kind of fancy furniture. And it was almost reserved for this really extra special guest, as if the Queen was going to turn up one day.
Okay.
Of course, she never did. So this room was never used.
That's
so
amazing.
when I came up with the name in the competition and then subsequently won and opened the Good Front Room, the Palm Court, which is a world-renowned restaurant space within, as you said, one of the most luxurious hotels in London, it was just befitting of this whole kind of vision I had for the Good Front Room.
Amazing.
How big is your team inside the good front room? I mean, when you started.
So I have a kitchen team of 5. There's 5 of us.
Okay.
On any one service.
Okay.
And then a large front of house team. There's about 7 or 8 of them.
Okay. Nice.
And that includes like a sommelier, obviously.
Yes, of course. So we don't have a specific sommelier. The managers on duty will take the role.
Okay, cool. And so there's a manager that you work alongside, or you have also your right to say how they want to serve the customers, or how your dish needs to be presented, and how does that kind of...
Yeah, so I mean, I've been given quite a lot of autonomy. I came with a fully developed concept. So I had very clear ideas about how I think food should be served. Of course, I've kind of gone into the Langham, which is an established restaurant space. So they have also clear ideas about how they think food should be served. So it's a collaborative process for sure.
And so far, so good?
So far, so good. You know, fully booked every night. So I'm going to say the proof's in the pudding.
That's great. And so did you bring any people from your own team, or it was all the staff who used to work at Langham?
So it's all Langham staff.
Oh, it's Langham staff.
With all Langham staff.
Right.
Which has worked out well, you know, as you can imagine, or I'm sure, as you know, staffing can be a whole job, you know.
Yeah.
So to kind of not have to have worried about,
of course,
has been a bit of a blessing.
I can imagine.
It allowed me to focus on all of the other things that come with running a restaurant.
And how did it go with, obviously, like going in as kind of new head chef? Does the team kind of like... Are they like, oh, just another chef, or are they like excited because obviously it's a new cuisine? They're gonna learn.
Yes, I mean, I think there's been a mixture of all. You know, I've come into a fully established team, who have kind of got there in a very different way to I arrived. As you can imagine, the kind of different personalities that you have to kind of negotiate.
You probably had some people leaving, some new people coming in.
Well, actually, they do really well at the Langham in terms of staff retention.
Sweet.
They're doing something right.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't get very many leavers. Not really. Not for hospitality.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the major problems we were talking about early on. Since the past 3 years, it's just hard to find people who are willing to do what hospitality used to be before COVID. Long hours and weekends that you don't really know when you're going to get during the week. From the past, is that a problem you've had before?
I mean, you know, staffing in hospitality is extremely challenging because I think, as we discussed earlier, is you get a lot of staff who are just passing through. So hospitality isn't really where their heart's at. It's, you know, they need to make money because they're going traveling, or they're in college, they're in university, and it's just kind of a stop off on their way to somewhere else, which can make it challenging to manage because, you know, naturally you're training staff that costs you money. If you're constantly retraining, that's a big chunk of your job.
We're talking about a minimum 30 hours of training. So yeah, it's the problem. It's a major problem at the moment, and I think for me personally, as I was saying, it's getting better. We're seeing people dropping their CVs or contacting us through the HR email, which is great to see. It's finally, a little bit of a breather.
Yes.
I know many chefs, head chefs that had no weekends for months, and they had to just jump in and doing 14 hours days, like the good, like the old times, really. That's what hospitality used to be, and it changed a lot since COVID. So one of those problems we're trying to tackle and still tackling, actually. Something you said in one of the interviews previously, and it was in regards to your mother, who actually pushed you to be a chef.
This was where my heart was at, and it was something that I was really good at.
Okay.
So I think that she, my mother's always really pushed for us to be happy, first and foremost. And I think that she's really understood that what she'd be happy for us to do might not marry up with what we're probably best at. And,
Of course.
one of the key messages at her early age is do what makes you happy. It's what will see you through, it's
Of course.
Yeah, it's sustainable.
What was your parcours? So you, since the little age, wanted to cook? You spent a lot of time in the kitchen?
I mean, I was in the kitchen. I was either in the kitchen or I was sat watching the Food Network channel.
Nice.
From a very early age,
Okay.
So by the time I started chef school, I had learned a lot of techniques just from watching TV. So things like making bechamel and, making cakes and
Nice.
all sorts of things.
I remember you were saying that any pocket money you got, you went to the supermarket.
Absolutely.
And,
That's funny.
I remember that when I got my pocket money, the only thing is I used to buy things to resell at school.
Yes.
So it was like sweets, for example,
An
and resell at
entrepreneur
school.
from early.
Although I love cooking and all that, and my dad being a pastry chef, I remember growing up not getting any pastries at home done by him because
Yes.
you did it all week.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it at home.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I love cooking, I'll become a chef. I'm not going to be
Yes, you're
cooking
not
at
gonna be
home.
Cooking at home. I never cook at home now.
That's the
No.
big thing with chef. I feel like you guys spending like 12 hours a day in a restaurant doing amazing dish. You're coming back home, you're making chips and salad.
As we're talking about dessert, the people close to me will know that I'm a huge dessert fan. I can always eat a dessert even if I'm full. There's always
Same.
space somehow, And
Same. It's
what
a
is
separate stomach.
it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's somewhere there. It's just like, it's fine. I can take more. Don't worry. But what's the typical dessert from Jamaica then?
Oh, we haven't really got typical desserts. Not really, but on my menu at the Langham, I have a sweet potato meringue pie, which is doing
that's
really
good.
well with like a cafe and lime sorbet, and it's divine. It
Okay.
really is divine. The lime balances out the sweetness of the meringue.
Oh yeah.
The sweet potato kind of meringue filling curd, if you will.
Yeah.
Is quite sweet and has kind of got caramel like toast.
Yeah,
So
okay.
then the sorbet just really balances it.
And it's very seasonal as well.
Yeah, so it's kind of it makes sense from a Caribbean point of view, but it feels brand new.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? I've never had this. I've never heard of this
Yeah,
before.
of
And then
course.
they're trying it and they're like, okay, that makes sense. I get this,
Yeah.
I have a pineapple upside down cake.
Mm.
Which kind of feels kind of Caribbean, but again, it's not really, not
Yes.
really. But, it's made with brown sugar. So when you think brown sugar, you think the Caribbean.
Mm.
It's got a rum glaze. It's got
wow.
pineapple, of course, which are,
Yeah.
from the Caribbean. So it makes sense from a Caribbean point of view, but it's not really a Caribbean.
Just makes me hungry now.
Yeah, me too.
You know what about dessert? That's something. It's so funny because I might be wrong on this, but 9 out of 10 of those good restaurants, they don't put half the effort they put in their starters and main that they would put in their dessert.
Yes.
Most of the times, I'm quite disappointed when it comes to dessert because the food has been great, but then the dessert could have been much better
Yes.
if they had put that much effort as well in the dessert.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Ravneet Gill mentions that she was one of the judges in 5 Star Kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
And she's a pastry chef.
Yeah.
And she kind of kept making the point of that, you know, restaurants just don't put enough effort into desserts and that chefs don't train themselves in desserts enough, in her opinion. And I think it's just simply that it's a different discipline. And, you know, a lot of us aren't very pastry skilled. As you will see if you watch 5-Star Kitchen, you'll see that was one of my many flaws. I've got many.
Well, I did like your afternoon tea.
That was a turning point.
It looks
stunning. Yes, I did really well, and I didn't know I'd done well until kind of towards the end of that challenge, because I had started with my sweets and everybody else had started with their savouries. So I really struggled with covering my cake with this mirror glaze, and I was just kind of like, "Oh no, that's it, Dom, you've lost this." And then when it came to the judging and I saw everybody else's, I was like, okay, no, you might have a chance. Because suddenly some of the chefs who had kind of really excelled in some of the other challenges completely fell at this challenge. And it really reminded me that one of my strengths, I believe, is that I'm a good all-rounder. I know a little bit about a lot of things. Of
course.
Yeah. And so that really came through for me.
That is one of the big strengths, is to be able to be quite versatile on many things, not being the best.
For sure.
Because otherwise you're a perfectionist. But if you're interested and good at everything, and you know, give interest to everything, then it's a good roundup, you know.
For sure.
Whereas if you're a perfectionist in one bit, then like you said, it comes to dessert, then you might not be, you know, as good.
For sure.
And I think it goes with many things. It's a bit like probably wine for you. I mean, you know, if you focus only on red and you only know about red, I think
For sure. At some point, you have to learn a bit about the spirits, about, I mean, I don't know, like a whiskey or the vodka, or like the pairing you can do with the spirits.
So who's your role model? Who have you been looking up to?
I mean, I've got many. Of course, Michel Roux Jr.
Yeah.
He's a mentor of mine, so definitely look up to him a lot. Mike Reed has been a great support since meeting him on the show, so somebody I definitely tap into quite a lot. Then, of course, Ravneet Gill, she's been amazing also. But growing up, you know, I watched Jamie Oliver's career since he was on Naked Chef. I was a teenager when he first started Naked Chef, and that was when the first chef to kind of really make chefing cool. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I really looked up to Jamie, and still my style is still got an element of Jamie's style. Yeah, because he had a very kind of free and easy kind of style. I'm a bit of a rebel at heart, so I don't like to be restricted by food rules and kind of the restraints that some kind of cooking lends itself to. That's not my style at all. If I feel a little bit kind of trapped in a style, I have to kind of throw the rule book out the window and go a bit wild.
Fair enough. It's funny because for me growing up in the UK, my parents like, the ones I would hear the most as a chef is obviously Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver, Matt Copia-White, and Michel Roux. Especially, I don't know why, but Michel Roux was probably because he's half French, and you know, being from a French family, probably heard it more. And my parents used to go to his restaurants times to times. Those were the four that were back in the 2000s, like early 2000s, the TV shows, and especially Gordon Ramsay with Kitchen Hell and you know his character, and the four that I remember the most until now. So interestingly enough, they're still on TV, still doing stuff. But in France, we have the same as well. I mean, in France, we grew up Philippe Etchebest.
Philippe Etchebest, it's a bit like Gordon Ramsay, but like French version. It's the same. Yeah. He's doing the same TV show, actually. But just going back to Michel Roux, did you try Le Gavroche? Have you been there?
No, so I've actually got a booking for January.
Yes. Because it's gonna close in what?
I think the end of January. Yes.
Michel Roux, we have a table here as well. I mean, in case
to be fair, I think they are fully booked like for end of January.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think so.
Well,
yes, he was saving a few spots for special people, so I made it onto the list.
That's great.
How is Michel Roux as a?
Do you know what? He's got a really great personality. He's a gentleman, you know.
Since the show, are you still having contact with him?
Yes, I mean he's at the Langham reasonably often.
Okay.
Because he still does a lot of work there. He has a cookery class which he does there. Event.
Okay, nice. Okay, so he's still like with you sometimes in the kitchen, helping, giving like
Yes,
advice?
yes. He's always there for advice at the end of the phone. He does, of course, have Le Gavroche. He's also very present there.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Were you on the phone number and then text him?
Yes, absolutely. Anything I need.
Talking about like ownership, about so the good front row, what is the kind of deal you have with Langham? Is it like for 1 year and every year you're gonna have like thing, or
Initially, I was supposed to be there for 6 months.
6 months? Okay.
I did have a 1-year contract, but
Okay.
the restaurant was supposed to be open for 6 months. The show was delayed,
Yeah.
the airing of the show,
Okay.
but my year's contract had already begun.
Ah,
So
okay.
then, so my original contract ended at the end of October,
Okay.
and then we've just extended for another 6 months.
Okay.
So
Nice.
my current contract runs out at the end of April.
Okay. And so
And then who knows? Who knows? It's too early
Yeah.
to start making any kind of hard decisions, right?
Do you think you can bring your concepts wherever you want them to?
Absolutely. I mean, the good front room I created on the show,
Yeah.
concept is something I've been kind of creating for a long.
Yeah.
So yeah,
In the kitchen, as a chef, it feels like what's amazing is to be able to create a team. Is that something for you? Are you building towards that, or
yes. I mean, I guess half the trouble is I think in this day and age is a lot of the great chefs have intentions to do their own thing. Do you know what I mean?
okay?
I find that kind of more and more a strong number two ultimately wants to be a number one.
Of course.
Do you know what I
I
mean?
mean, yeah.
So it's really hard to kind of find a team who wants to kind of come with you to be, your wingman.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, bridesmaid and never the bride. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I think you kind of get a little bit bored with that. And I think head chefs should inspire to go and do your own thing.
Of
Do you
course.
know what I mean?
Yeah. That's
So
it.
I think that I'd like to think that some of the chefs who work, they're looking at me and kind of thinking, what you're doing, and I could do this. Yeah.
Because some of the chefs that I know quite personally and quite close, who are in their 50s, and I'm pretty much referring to where my girlfriend works. He's a really top chef. I mean, he's the food he does is incredible. He's got 2 restaurants side by side, and the team he has, a lot of them have been with him for years.
Mm.
And I'm talking back of house, and some have then left for like a couple of years and came back to him really and working for him, and he managed to create that family. And even further than that, he created a family in front of the house as well.
It's
So,
really nice.
yeah, that's why I was asking, is that something, that's is it hard to create, or is it something that's quite natural?
I mean, I think you also need to kind of really connect with your staff and also be able to kind of teach them many things. I mean, I've got a couple of staff now that I would like to maybe kind of keep a connection with. But, for example, one of them's going back home. He lives in Hungary. And he goes back home next month. Will our paths cross again? I don't know. He's a great chef.
Yeah.
He's really nice to work with. He's got a good attitude. And we work well together.
Of course.
And then my new sous chef now, who I think we also work really well together. We've kind of spoken loosely about kind of what the future might hold, but chefs are also very fickle.
Yeah.
Chefs are very kind of, by nature, we kind of move a bit with the wind. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think, in terms of laying roots, we don't do that very deeply, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when I think about kind of what the future holds for me, when people are asking me daily about if I walk around the restaurant, I get it about 25 times.
Yeah.
And my answer is, I don't know. I'm going to see how I feel in January and just kind of, because what I mean by that is someone could approach me and say, do you want to come and live in Australia for 6 months?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like, yeah, why not?
So just a quick break. I'd like to take a minute to say a big thank you to our sponsor for today's episode, which is workforce.com. They are the market leader in labor and HR tool on the market for hospitality businesses across the UK and Europe. Workforce is helping organizations to give their managers the info to make their best data-driven decisions. You can routinely hit wage revenue targets by slashing labor costs and integrating your till system. Now, one of my favorites is stopping the weekly Excel spreadsheets log. and turn payroll into a 5-minute job, ensuring that everyone gets paid correctly every time. Additionally, never manually calculate how much holiday your staff are owed again, which includes working out the average leave allowance for you. Also, improve staff retention by using the engagement boosters. Now, I've been using workforce.com for the past 4 years for both of my businesses, and it has saved me so much time and hassle. So is your staff management process just more work than it should be? Then join workforce.com now. Now, back to the podcast with Dominic Taylor.
Dom, what do you think about like the way you should manage or how you manage your team in kitchen?
I mean, I think kitchens are notorious for being a bit kind of military regime type style, like a management style, which I think in my mind is quite, doesn't make sense in 2020.
Not anymore.
I just don't think that people really respond well to that personally. I'd like to say that I've got a bit softly type of approach. I don't really like to make people do things, to just do what's right. And sometimes it serves me well and sometimes not so much, but it's my style. It's my style in life. I don't like to be forced into things. I like to do things willingly because it's just right. And that's how I tend to approach. That's
Especially
my
naturally,
management, you know. If you don't want to do it, I don't think you should.
We can't hide or ignore the fact that now service has kind of gone down in quality ever since COVID.
I mean, one of my theories are that I think people's expectations changed with COVID. I think that businesses kind of gave the impression that they understood now what was required of them and slowly have taken it all back, you know. So say, for example, I think kind of, you know, some businesses, especially hospitality businesses, kind of thought that this 5-day week or this 4-day week was going to remain because it now made sense. It meant people were kind of given specific days off that they could get used to. And the business had a chance to kind of, I don't know, rejuvenate and be ready for this next 5-day week. And slowly we've kind of gone back to 7. We've gone back to 60-hour weeks. And it's a bit kind of like, well, you identified that we needed this and now you've just taken it back. And that you don't seem to have made up for that.
Okay, but that's the thing about the 4 days a week shift for chef. Do you think it's better or it make more sense to have like a 5 days a week for a chef?
I mean, it's a gift and a curse because it's kind of like, okay, a 4-day week, but I'm working harder on all of those 4 days.
That's the thing.
So then I need more recuperation time.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if I'm now still spending these 3 days off on my sofa because I can't move, then are they days off? And have I now got better work-life?
Yeah.
If I'm spending the 4 days knackered and the 3 days recuperating or recovering.
Yeah. And how is actually your, life routine at the moment? Taking on, obviously, Langham now, what is your...
It's challenging. I think that with chefing is it's so broad and target-based that you can't help but find yourself in a bit of a kind of hamster wheel type of mentality, because you quite quickly realize, well, the quicker I run is the better, more productive I am.
Of course.
So whilst you might kind of get into it kind of going, well, actually, I'm going to just take my time and kind of keep a steady pace here, slow and steady wins the race. But you slowly realize that, well, actually, if I cover more ground in less time, I'm more productive. So, it's quite easy for you to kind of think, well, you know what, I haven't got time to go to the gym anymore, or I haven't got that much time to spend with family or your partner anymore. And slowly, this kind of life that you built is eroded because what you're seeing is the target, and the target is being more productive, having more people come through the door and serving them with less resources, ultimately.
Of course, yeah. Do you find it hard to have that kind of, I would say, taking care of your personal health? Because obviously doing long hours is not super healthy. Not eating properly as well. You can skip. I do skip meals on a daily basis, which is really, it's not good. New projects coming in, especially as a head chef, you can't plan your day. I mean, it's different.
So, For sure. There's a lot of spinning plates.
Yeah.
And sometimes your focus is on just keeping those spinning. So you drop one and there's so much repercussions to that.
Yeah, of course.
And then because, for many head chefs, not just myself, is your work is so tightly linked to your passion. It's kind of like that is your driver. Your driver is, well, actually, I just want to get a really amazing product. And if that means that I have to sleep less or work harder or not go to the gym, they feel like easy sacrifices. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. Which is, for me personally, I've last year kind of realized that I need to take a bit more time to myself. And that was kind of my New Year resolution.
Yes. How's that going?
Well, I say that, but I did go live 6 months in Spain, which did me very good. I needed it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it again.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yes. I feel like with my career, I've gone through kind of peaks and troughs in terms of what I've been able to do. So I spent my whole 30s solid. So, I missed birthdays and weddings and stag do's because of work.
Okay.
And I was able to kind of work my way up through the ranks quite quickly.
Yeah.
And that was because of my dedication to my craft.
Of course.
And it was a crucial stepping stone to what led me to this position now. It gave me confidence in order to I could develop menus to make me believe I could manage staff. So it was crucial for me to be able to do this job.
Yeah. And does that come naturally, or?
Do you know what? Of recent, so many people have kind of said, for you to do the competition, you were so brave. And I didn't think of it as bravery, to be honest.
Okay.
The way I didn't apply for the competition. Yeah. So the production company reached out to me.
Oh, they reached out to you.
And said that they looked at my Instagram and my website and they just loved it. And they were like, I think you'd be really great for this show. So I was just like, yeah, all right, cool. So I think if I'd thought about it for too long, I probably wouldn't have gone because it's just not really my style. I'm not really competitive in that way.
Okay.
But it's because I didn't think about it.
Before the show, you used to be the private chef.
So after I set up Chef Dom Taylor Kitchen, I had a long residency for a couple of years, but then COVID hit. Okay. So then I struggled a bit. I lost quite a lot of money. I was locked into a contract for a while.
Okay.
I was in, and because we kind of thought it was going to be short term, so then, the advice is to don't change too much. Like this is going to, be over before we know it. And then it wasn't. But by then it was kind of like, well, now you've held on for this long. You may as well hold on a bit longer. How long could this go on for? Well, apparently a long time. So I lost a lot of money. So then when I reopened, I was in such deficit that I then had to do so much myself and then I burnt out. I worked way too hard. So then when I kind of was private chefing, that was ultimately because I needed a rest. Okay. I didn't really want to, it was a stop off that I didn't really want to stop off for too long because I wasn't really set up to be a private chef. I feel like the way for private chef to make sense and to kind of be comfortable, you have to have your own kitchen space and it has to be a professional space. Of course. Otherwise, it just makes it really difficult, Yeah. So there was a lot of moving my things around. I didn't really have kitchen home. Yeah. So it made it challenging.
Of course. Okay. And you just mentioned that you did a burnout. How long to recover?
Not so sure fully recovered. I feel like kind of slowly I've seen the things that rejuvenate me slip away.
Of course.
So like I used to do a lot of yoga, at least 4 or 5 times a week. And I haven't been to yoga for about 18 weeks. Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh my.
So to kind of go from kind of this was something I did every day, now I don't have time to go ever.
It's dangerous, isn't it?
It's insane.
Yeah.
And then things like, I typically eat quite healthily. But, I can't remember the last time I've had 5, 6, 7 fruit and veg in a day. I can't remember the last time. I can't remember, I very rarely sit down to eat. Very rarely.
Yeah.
So, and then when you think about not sitting down to eat, about then how balanced are these meals that you eat?
Yeah.
So typically, I'm eating a piece of meat between 2 bits of bread.
Yeah.
Standing. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, dangerous business.
I did also a burnout in January this year. And sometimes I ask myself, like, I need to kind of like slap myself in the face and be like, you don't want to repeat that. But it's so hard. Like you said, yoga, I used to do yoga until I stopped as well, and doing sports as well, eating properly. And that kind of led up to the burnout. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when that happens where I see myself again, like, okay, shit, I need to be careful, because you don't really recover from a burnout, or at least not for me and not for you at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's really hard because I've put into my calendar that at 4:30, go and sit down and have a break.
Really?
And
Okay.
I don't think I've done it once since I put it in my
Oh, so it
calendar.
doesn't work?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Okay.
But at least I feel like the intention was there.
There
Do
you
you
go,
know what I
yeah.
mean? But there's a point where it feels like I've got that space to go and do that because you're just constantly against the clock. You know, you've got a fully booked restaurant turning up at 6:00, regardless of whether you eat or don't
course.
eat, you know,
Of
so,
course.
and you want to kind of get that right. So it's challenging.
Deep inside you, enjoy that kind of.
For sure. You know, I think that,
Real,
you know, as I
basically.
mentioned earlier, I think that because chefing kind of it's reward based and target based there's that adrenaline of
Yeah.
kind of, you know, you getting it right, but it's so short lived. So you have to get it right again tomorrow. You know,
Yeah.
you don't get
Never-ending
to
story.
ride on the fact that I got it right today.
Yeah.
It's,
Of course.
that's over by midnight and you got to do it all over again tomorrow.
That's the correct.
What kind of advice will you give to a young chef to escape this sort of burnout? in the
I mean,
future?
I think that one of the bits of advice I wish I'd take for myself
Yeah.
is, Dominic, outsource some of these things.
Okay.
Is, you know, you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm really struggling at the moment with kind of outsourcing some of my social media.
Mhm.
I really like to kind of post from the heart. I wouldn't be able to get someone to post for me. Oh, I could, but I'd still need to write the captions.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't really have somebody replying to messages for me either because I feel like I've got a connection with my followers.
Yeah.
So they could only really be doing very minimal parts of the social media. And then I'm just like, well, is it even worth me paying
Yeah.
somebody to do that? Because if you've got to write the caption, then the posting bit's easy. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's the thing.
So it's like delegation, basically. that
It's
you're
about
saying, yeah.
delegation,
Yeah.
that-
And that's the problem about passion.
Yes.
And passion, you can't replace.
You
You
can't.
can't give
You
it
You
someone
can't
to
replace
take.
passion.
Like it's like getting someone else to draw a picture for you. How does that
Yeah.
work? You know?
Yeah.
And what's your end goal then?
I've been having a chat with a couple of companies, and it'd be kind of nice to do some TV work. I feel like working with Five Star Kitchen really kind of opened my eyes to kind of what that could be like.
Of course.
I was quite pleased with the way I came across on TV. I felt like I kind of came alive in certain aspects. So I think I'd like to do more of that.
Yeah,
sure.
that's why we're really thankful that you came, because you do have the profile to
Yes.
for the cameras,
Oh,
you
thank you.
know,
Thank you.
for everything, which is great. And yeah, for us, for our first episode is quite and obviously talking to other people in different sections and parts of the hospitality. Obviously, we wanted to start with chefs because it's the most related to hospitality.
Yeah.
And then later on down the line, we want to speak to
Restaurant
ventures.
owner, manager, every kind of people who work in the hospitality industry
Mhm.
who is like, happy to come and to share some stories with us, talking a bit about like, like the
Their life.
daily job basis. So yeah.
A bit like
I'm
what we've done with you, really.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. what we do.
Kind of educate people on different lifestyle in hospitality. I mean, the lifestyle of the chef is the craziest,
Yeah,
as,
yeah.
as we know. But just to have a little bit of a vision of hospitality in general, it's got so much to offer, really.
Mm.
I mean, we're all three different on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
I just wanted to ask the last question. What kind of advice will you give to a young chef who want to start but is not sure?
Yes.
What kind of advice, will you give to this young?
My advice would be is to go out and try many different kitchens, phone around, and especially at that age where money's not super important to you.
Yeah.
Go and work in loads of different spaces, different kitchens, under different head chefs,
course.
cooking different types of cuisine to really get an understanding of, do I love this? And do I love this enough? And then if the answer is yes, I really reckon they kind of get some Michelin star experience under their belt. Even if that's not where they want to end up, I think that will really serve you well. And I don't really carry regrets per se. But if there's something that I wish I did do, it would be get some Michelin star experience when I was young and when money wasn't so important.
I mean, it's not
Not that I
too
can
late.
remember when money wasn't too
Yeah.
important.
But I mean,
was
that's
a bit
it.
of a
like-
money man from very early. I had a paper round and yeah.
Do you feel it's you've done it at the right age? Is it the right age? Because some, they can get famous. Well, famous. I mean, not the word famous, but getting to that peak too early.
Yes, I mean, I don't want to say yes to that question. I think that for me, this is a good age
Okay.
because I think that there's a lot of maturity that I have now that I didn't have when I was 30.
Of course.
But that said, I also don't feel very 40. You know, I feel quite 30-ish.
Yeah.
Whatever
You're going to have to give me
means,
the
yeah.
name of that cream you put.
So, you know, I still feel young enough to kind of enjoy this,
Yeah.
but I feel kind of old enough where I also don't want to go and spend it all at the bar. Do you
Of
know what I
course.
mean?
Yeah. That's-
So it kind of feels like the right time for
course.
me. One thing I'm very, very big on is kind of people doing what feels right for them in that moment,
Yeah.
you know? So I don't think that there's any kind of fast and rules.
course.
I think that you have to kind of follow your gut.
Yeah.
Your gut will lead you far.
course.
And I think that one of the things that I wish in my life I did was listen more to my intuition, because I think that I have a really good intuition.
And do you believe in luck?
I think that you have to prepare for luck. I think that you have to be ready for luck.
Okay.
I think that one of the things that I know when I won was, and my mum had to remind me, is don't think for a second that you didn't have to work for this. You just didn't work for it at the Langham. But I saw you work for this
Of course.
for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you were ready when this opportunity came.
course.
You could have easily have not been ready.
Yeah.
And, you know, somebody who didn't win, they clearly wasn't quite ready, you know.
course.
So you worked for this, just not at the Langham, not in the same way as some others worked for it. But you were ready when opportunity came
Yeah.
knocking.
Because I find it quite offensive when people say, "Oh, you were lucky."
Mm-hmm.
And whereas for me, luck, I believe in some sort of luck, but not the luck where it just drops from the sky.
Yes.
I think you have to push
For
luck.
sure. For sure.
You need
for
to bring the odds on your way
For sure.
and really, like, you know, tickle the luck, you know,
For
like
sure.
really
For sure.
bad
For sure.
to get it.
For sure.
Whereas you know, some people are, you're very lucky, you know, you're just lucky to have that.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's
yes,
not-
yes. Yes.
No,
Yes.
you've worked for it and
sure.
you've put the odds.
For sure.
That's what luck is.
Because those dishes that I won the competition, I ultimately won the competition with. I was working a long time on those dishes. You
course.
know, my residency that I had prior to going on the competition is where I found fine-tuned these dishes.
Yeah,
So when I then presented them on the show, they were half ready, you know.
of course.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Yeah.
your time.
No, thank you for having me. Great conversation. Thank you for the wine.
I mean,
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you to everybody who listened to the podcast.
Yeah.
And you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube,
and Instagram.
and Instagram as well.
fantastic.
And take care.
Yes, thank you.